There's a cow floating in your garden. No one told you we would get this high, but the water's at your ankles. 2 stories up, you thought you'd stay dry. But they should have told you, yeah, you should have known. You've done all of this shit before, and you were ready, yeah, you were prepared for the water. But where were they? And where is he? Old Bob from the top burned your life away for the money. And how's your dog? Is she okay? It's been 3 days since you had to float away into the water.
This is what we're facing. Can anyone please help? There's people on roofs that need rescuing. They're begging and pleading, please, if you have a boat and you're able to, please come help. They say the floodwaters are going to go higher, but this is what we're currently facing.
Hello!
Hello.
Have you got the kids? Yeah. How many you got?
3 kids.
This
is what's happening at the moment in this room. There's a fire. There's the sky.
These were volunteers, not SES, volunteers who had taken it into their own minds to get in their fishing boats with their outboard motors and rescue people, which they did. And I think they're heroes. I think those people are remarkable, and I owe my life to them.
Okay, so on the 28th of February, for me, I got a call from my mum about 6 o'clock in the morning. I live at Port Macquarie, and she said, look, you probably should get up here, the water's starting to come up. So I jumped in the car and drove straight up there. I got there about 10 o'clock, and by that time the water was already starting to come up into the backyard. 7 o'clock, I reckon the power went out and everything went dark, didn't it? You know, after watching a few caravans roll down the street, didn't they? They floated down into, nearly ran into houses next door, and then we just methodically started just hitting houses on the south side of Woodburn, and there were just, as soon as we started sort of in the boat, shining lights onto houses, all of a sudden people just started coming out everywhere, just yelling out and waving torches and sort of, yeah, wanting to be picked up. But we only had, you know, that small boat and an old motor and enough room for a certain amount of people, and we had to just do it very slowly.
And for us, with the noise of the water and so forth and people screaming out, they didn't know who was coming to rescue them or if anyone was going to rescue them. We couldn't communicate back to them, we're coming to get you.
Hi, I'm Denny Lickis. I have a wife, Anna, and 3 little kids, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. I'm a cane soybean cattle farmer at Riley's Hill. On Monday morning, my wife and I got up and started lifting everything. And then by 8 o'clock, I sort of thought I'd go and check the river heights, just in my little area along our road. Being the 5th generation, I sort of have been through a few floods here and know when we sort of need to start moving cattle and yeah, moving ourselves out, I suppose. I took 9 of our young cattle out, which was around my house, and unfortunately 9 out of the 60 that we had on the property, they were the only 9 that we got out through the duration of the next 24 hours of, yeah, where it led to. Sorry. It wasn't just the cattle, you know, when I suppose it's been a bit hard when you lose your house. your farming, the cattle, obviously a living, breathing thing. They're obviously the tougher side of it. 3:30, 4 o'clock, my phone rang, and it was the elderly couple 2 doors down from my house, pleading for me to get hold of a tinny, if I could, to come and get them because it was 1.5 foot in their top story. So as soon as daylight broke, I headed off in the tinny by myself. It was only a little 25 horsepower one, to pick up these elderly couple.
He did that first run at 7 a.m, sort of was the first light.
Yeah, it's just trees and shipping containers, 44-gallon drums. It was an obstacle course to get to where we had to get. Started getting phone calls from other people further downriver, to infants and babies and young ones as well to pick up on the way back to Woodburn.
Yeah, he really didn't start the rescues around town until after dark, went all night.
By dark, we were picking people up, and hundreds of phone calls and messages to pick people up. But yeah, you couldn't get them all. We're just lucky a few other boats come and helped as well.
It was certainly a long night for us.
Picking up people is fine, putting them in the boat, you're worrying about them, trying to get them back, and then you just turn around, you go again, and then there's another family that has to be picked up. But every time I would go back down the south side of Woodburn along the old highway, I would just look at my mum and dad's house every time, and it was just, that's the sort of thing that devastated me more than anything. Like every time we drive past, I'd look at it, and it was just sad. So, and it just kept coming up and up and up, and I just thought, where's this going to stop? So.
Another unknown phone call came through, which was his partner, and it just happened that she rang me just as I was in calling out for him in my house, and she was just absolutely hysterical and really upset, and was screaming into the phone that he was stuck in the roof cavity, and he couldn't kick a colourblind sheet off because it was a new roof sheet, and he was going to drown, and he was in there with the dog, and they were going to drown, and they couldn't get out, and I had nothing, you know, like I'm a builder by trade, all my tools are 6 foot underwater by this stage. I thought, how am I going to get this person out of the roof cavity? And thought, I don't know, I'll go to the second drawer of my kitchen and see what I've got in there. And I pulled a egg spatula out to start with and thought, I don't know what this is going to do. And then as I dug around in there, I come across the old meat cleaver, which my wife, her grandfather owned Boise's Butchery out at Coonabarabran, and it's still called Boise's Butchery to this day. And when he sold it, and as he passed away, the thing that we got left was this meat cleaver. Anyway, so I've grabbed this meat cleaver and thought, well, I don't know, I'll take it down with the egg spatula and try and pop a roof off, pop a sheet off, or do something with it. I don't know, anyway, so we've jumped in the boat and headed to next door, and I was yelling out to him, and he told me that the power had shorted out, so it was safe to drive the tinny onto the roof. And so we drove up onto the skewing of the roof, and I just said, kick the roof, mate, so I know where you are. So he's kicked at the roof. I could see the roof moving where he was, so I said, right, grab the dog, stand a metre or two back. I've got a meat cleaver here. I'm just gonna bring it down and see what happens. I'm going to try and cut you out, mate. Anyway, so I've just had the meat cleaver and give her a swipe, and it cut straight through, and I thought, you beauty, it was like a can opener. So I just hacked a big C-section out of this roof and peeled it back, and he had a blanket up in the roof at the time, so that was great. We laid it across the jagged edge of iron and got the dog out and got him out. Yeah, the look on his face when he got out and saw the amount of water around him was sort of probably an image that you'll never forget.
After we made Brent park the boat up on that first dangerous night when he was rescuing locals, it got to the point where, it was really charging down the streets, through Cedar Street particularly, down past the IGA, and it just made it unsafe to be doing that in the dark. He did have a decky on board with him. Scott was always with him at all times. We actually said to any boat that was out, don't travel alone, and one person would have to be driving the boat on the throttle while the other one was helping people and pets and luggage into the boat. It was...
And you needed, like with the elderly too, you needed a second person to help literally pick them up and put them into the boat because they couldn't climb in and out of the boats.
So after I've dropped these elderly people up and I've cut the neighbour out of the roof with the meat cleaver, I've then gone to the neighbours on the other side of my place. They're a couple, and she's a little bit larger lady, and she had a knee reconstruction, I think, at some stage. And we had one leg in the boat. Her partner was hanging onto the boat while we lifted her over the rail. She had one leg in the boat, and before she could get the other leg in the boat, we had a brown snake also trying to get in the boat with us. So I've got the old timber oar trying to beat off this brown snake whilst I've got hold of her second leg trying to bring it into the boat. And it was I don't know, it would have, at the time it wasn't funny, but I look back on it now thinking it was fighting off a brown snake with a timber oar while you're trying to get a lady into a boat. It was a tough gig. Yeah, it was a tough gig to say nonetheless.
Yeah, but then when we got back to dropping people off, Kim was at the evacuation centre with a lot of other people that were really helpful, so would help us get people out of the boat. We're scavenging fuel out of cars just to keep the boat going, torch batteries, all that sort of stuff. And it's that time we started hearing about Bob May. All we heard was there was a guy called Bob May that was an older fella that was injured that lived out in the south side of Woodburn in a single level brick home. That's all we knew. And we kept, every time we dropped people off, they'd go, "Have you seen Bob? Have you got to Bob yet?"
It took a bit of doing for us, but we certainly did have Bob May in the background of our head all night. But finding his house proved very, very hard. When the water's up there and it's like a dam and no streets there to go by like you used to be able to. But we did end up finding Bob. He was the last guy that we rescued, and it was just before daylight on the morning, about 5:30 from memory. And judging by Bob's reaction, he was very excited to see us.
I lived beside Rocky Mouth Creek, which I love. I wanted to have a little water view. I grow orchids as a hobby. I also have a lot of wood turning equipment out in the shed, and can turn wood if I wish to, but of course it all got damaged in the flood, so it's no longer usable. On the 28th of February, we knew that the water was coming up. We knew that Lismore was looking at flood, and we knew that there had been quite a lot of rain upstream, well upstream from here. As the water started to come up, and I could see the water coming up beside the orchid house and creeping across my back lawn, I took a few photographs. It was starting to concern me that this looked like something I'd never seen before. I'd never seen water come up above the level of the actual creek bank. I got up out of the bed after the water came up as far as the mattress, and took a foam mattress that I had and put it on the dining room table, which was a good deal higher than my bedstead, and decided that I'd try and sleep up there. The water kept rising and kept rising and kept rising, and at about 2:30 in the morning I had a call from the SES because one of my rellies kindly had rung them, SES, and said, "Our old uncle needs to be rescued." So I had a call from the SES, and they said, "We'll come out in the morning when it's daylight, because we can't come at the moment, it's too dangerous." I was in touch by mobile phone with one of my neighbours who'd already moved out of his house. Fortunately for me, my house is on a bit of a higher mound. Anyway, he rang me and said, "We've got people coming to get you." I thought, well, that's good, because the SES aren't going to come till daylight, and who knows how high the water will be then. I got a knock on the front door, and there were two guys in a tinny saying, "Come on, we're going to get you out." One guy came in, the other fella stayed and held the boat against the front post of the house, and he came in, and we had to push the door against the current to get it open to get out to the front door. the water was so strong. I've got the 2 bags and went out with Derek to the boat, and Derek and Marcus helped me into their boat because I had to get up on a little table, get my knees on the table to be pushed up into the boat because the water by this time was pretty high. How they found their way to the evacuation centre, which was the public school in Woodburn, I have no idea, because nothing was the same with all this water over it. I reckon that if I had stayed there till daylight, I might have been gurgling. I mightn't be here.
And as soon as people's feet hit the dry ground up there, a big sigh of relief. A lot of them just collapse in, tears, exhaustion, stressed.
Disbelief.
Yeah.
I knew that we wouldn't be the only ones doing it by the number of people that were sort of congregating on the hill.
Yeah.
But one of the things a lot of people don't realise is the guys in the tinnies around this town, there was heaps of them. They were actually, it wasn't just that night they went for it, it was days and days and days where they were bringing food in, evacuating people out to Evans Head when the hill became too busy. We've got a pretty good, strong township and community base here in Woodburn, and they've done a great job. And as I said, we were just one of many, many people out there doing the rescues.
Currently on a boat in Woodburn, and the town is completely submerged. My heart's with all of those who've lost their homes in the last 2 days. There's an incredible community effort underway to help our communities. This is our 9th trip now to Woodburn from Evans Head, delivering supplies and picking up the elderly and vulnerable people. But look, our region needs food. We need supplies, and we're going to need an enormous amount of support in the coming days, and I hope the government is there to support us.
Best part about it was we had no deaths. We saved sort of everyone, no one died, and a cold beer at the end of the day.
Who's there?
Bobby!
G'day!
Hey, buddy.
You guys saved my life, didn't you? Oh, wonderful.
Last time we were here, we were swimming.
We were all swimming.
Good to see you with pants on this time.
Oh, and if I see you, my friend, sitting on your roof, I will get into my tinny and I will rescue you. Oh, and if I see you, my friend, sitting on your roof, I will get into my tinny and I will rescue you. Oh, and if I see you, my friend, sitting on your roof, I will get into my tinny and I will rescue you. I will rescue you. I will rescue you. I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.